Okay, yeah, we are live for episode 177 of Trek Live. Hopefully everybody can hear everyone. How you doing this morning, Bill?
I'm doing really well. Really happy to be here, as always, talking about a deeper cut topic. I think this is like 3 in the last 5 or 6 weeks that are kind of in this ballpark, like deeper cut kinds of visual things, costumes, props. So this is turning into a little bit of a little mini series, and it's been fun to explore. Yeah. Yeah. No way.
Usually makes for a good topic. Should be fun.
Yeah, I think like when we've done a lot, we've for a long time now used guess each other's as sort of our way to look at like favorite uniforms, favorite bridges, sets, things like that, and that works really well. I think when there's a more finite batch of potential options, like when you're dealing with 10, 12 potential things you could choose. These topics that we're doing are so much more wide ranging that I think it makes more sense to just kind of have casual, loose conversations with some screenshots going by on the visual feed on YouTube to jog our memories as we go, and to maybe kind of visualize the sorts of things we're looking for, and to talk about what comes to mind. Like, we're not looking to do like a favorite list, or maybe not even necessarily pick like an ultimate favorite. Just talk about what comes to mind, what we like. Maybe some interesting misses on some of these things, but it's a vehicle to get us get our Star Trek neurons firing and start an interesting conversation, hopefully. So looking forward to it. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about our favorite Starfleet variants today, right? To kind of beat around the bush. I'm not sure we ever identified the
I don't think we did
so
too.
If you're watching, if you're watching the video, I'm sure you figured it out. But we're going to be covering our favorite non-standard Starfleet uniforms. So we're not going to go with the uniforms that you see our characters wearing like day in, day out on the particular show of the, whatever show. The Discovery uniforms are not eligible.
There's some that are a gray area that we'll probably talk about.
Some are,
but exactly what Bill's saying. It can't be a regular uniform. We've already kind of covered that with kind of a guess each other's and some other types of topics. But this morning we're doing alternates because we realized that there's a whole heck of a lot.
There's a ton of them. There's a ton of them. I definitely, even as early as, or as late as earlier this weekend, I was thinking to myself, how many are there? Like, it's going to be kind of tough to find a ton to talk about. And then last night, you and I were kind of just hanging out and perusing screenshots on sites like TrekCore, and it turns out there are a ton of options to look at and talk about. So I think we'll cover a wide range of series.
Maybe close to 40 photos. Which usually, guys, if I don't try to overload it, but it's just tough to. I want to try to get a lot of stuff in there. So usually it's 15 to 20 screen grabs in there for the slideshow. But this topic's going to be jam packed, so it should be a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, looking forward to it. But before we get into all that, how are you doing with your rewatch? We didn't do this last week because we did
a good
draft that went long.
I'm trying to remember what I told you guys last.
I think the last thing we covered was You Are Cordially Invited.
Okay, cool. That's what I was thinking. So from there, that's episode 7. So I went to
Resurrection, which is your favorite episode of Deep Space Nine.
No, I do not like Resurrection, but I did watch Resurrection all the way to the last episode I watched was Honor Among Thieves.
Okay.
pretty good run in there. Um, man, this is there's a lot of good stuff to talk about. Statistical probabilities is really good. Magnificent Ferengi, always great. Star Trek comedy, kind of action adventure type stuff is good too. Waltz is kind of deals with some tough stuff, and it's kind of underrated. I think maybe not underrated, but I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. Far Beyond the Stars, obviously a classic. That's episode 13. I really can't. There's not much else I can say other than it's just fantastic, and I think it's one of Star Trek's best episodes probably ever. And then One Little Ship and Honor Among Thieves, both kind of solid episodes. I really like One Little Ship because it's a nice little break from the war arc. I know it kind of gets tied in at the maybe latter half of the episode, but just the initial start and setup is so Star Trek that we don't really get from Deep Space Nine, and it's really refreshing to have just a simple, hey, they're going to check out an anomaly type of thing. And then a very sci-fi kind of explanation or something happens in the episode, and it's just really good. And kind of the same thing with Honor Among Thieves. I think we've seen the double agent kind of theme kind of explored, where they've kind of feel for the guy that they're about to set up and all that. But it's just nice to have a break from kind of the work. This in Honor Among Thieves, it kind of ties into the war a little bit, but I just think anytime any of these actors get to do anything other than their normal stuff, I think it's also great too. So you get that in a couple of these episodes, but pretty solid run. I would say, at least for season 6 goes, there's only maybe 1 or 2 in there that were just okay. But yeah, solid run for me.
I think you are at that point where Deep Space Nine's really, it's super serialized. Obviously, there are things that play in from episode to episode, and the war arc is very tied together and really cohesive.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that makes Deep Space Nine so good and so easy to rewatch and such a successful show is that it walks that line so well. Like, it's got its eye on the ball at this point with a lot of the war stuff. A lot of the episodes, like you were kind of saying, with both One Little Ship and Honor Among Thieves, like there are pieces of those stories that tie into the greater what's happening in the galaxy stuff. But they're able to find ways to tell episodic adventures, have episodes that have vastly different voices and tones. One Little Ship is so different from Honor Among Thieves. And Waltz is so different from Magnificent Ferengi. Like, you're getting that really malleable Star Trek clay that can change into whatever it needs to be that week and give audiences different flavors. But it's still very tied together and cohesive with the serialized storyline with the war, and there are things in those episodes that connect back to the greater story. So I think they really found that perfect kind of line to walk to have their cake and eat it too, with the episodic adventures while also having the serialized stuff. Yeah.
Agreed.
For me,
you're right on the heels of me.
I'm starting to catch up to you a little bit. Yeah, I finished. I honestly, kind of like you, I don't totally remember where I was the last time we did this. But I finished season 3 of Voyager and season 5 of Deep Space Nine. I had a week of some vacation days and like 6 days off in a row with a weekend in the middle there. And I watched a lot of Star Trek in those days. Probably the most I've watched in a short span of time in a few years. A lot of highlights in there. Really, I think one of the reasons I was able to do it is it's full of really good stuff and good variety. Voyager's got stuff like
both shows,
at the end of the season, I think before and after in real life and Distant Origin and Worst Case Scenario and Scorpion, like ending on that with even Displaced in there is like a little quiet little solid episode.
Yeah.
Maybe not spectacular, but a fun time. It ends so strong. And then Deep Space Nine, season 5, kind of the same thing. You got Soldiers of the Empire and Children of Time and Empire Noir and In the Cards and Call to Arms. Like all these things are just like killing it. And it's I could sit here all day and just do I could talk for an hour about the list of episodes.
Yeah.
I'll just say it was killing it. There is a stretch of Voyager that I enjoyed more than I remember from years past. I think it's a little run of kind of little discussed, maybe underlooked at episodes. Looking at things like fair trade, which I know some people don't care for, some people like a lot. I've gathered. Alter Ego, I think, is underrated. Good story for Harry Kim and Tuvok, especially. Coda is an interesting, really grim, dark episode. There's some really great Robert Beltran stuff in that at the beginning when they're in the shuttle and they crash and Janeway's dying and Chakotay's trying to keep her alive and resuscitate her. Beltran really goes for the emotion in that. Unity's an interesting one, introducing the Borg with kind of the XBs before there were XBs in Star Trek Picard, like this little pod of disconnected Borg that are living as a community. So episodes that I think kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit in the middle of season 3 that have some weight on them and are interesting, but maybe not classics. None of them I don't think are like upper echelon, upper tier Star Trek Voyager, but there's meat on those bones, and there are interesting things to bandy about, and especially I think Alter Ego and Unity. So if you're looking for deep cut, off the beaten path episodes to check out kind of randomly, I would maybe recommend them.
Yeah. Yep, all good stuff.
Yeah. I think we should get into it. Let's get into the topic du jour with our favorite, or at least what comes to mind, Starfleet variants. So I guess I should ask you, like, this is another one of those topics that I think mostly came from you. I think you sort of instigated this idea. What is there something that is going to come up in this slideshow that you would point at and say, I saw this and it kind of made me think of it, or like what sort of got you thinking about this?
Yeah, I some of this stuff it stems from just other uniform and prop episodes and kind of episodes that we've done in the past, but this to me I wanted to talk about it because I didn't realize how much kind of alternates were there, but I just remember the feeling of anytime I see one, I just get so excited, and I think it's so cool to see our heroes just in something different than what we normally see them. It feels very jarring. It makes the episode very memorable. If you see a screen grab from an episode or a movie, you just get taken right back to it. So that's kind of the issue, or not the issue, my thought process behind this episode is that anytime we're in an alternate or in a different type of Starfleet uniform, it's very jarring because of the consistency of the uniforms they're usually wearing, and so that's why some of these really jump out at me, is because that's why they're memorable. Anytime you do change something that's very consistent over 7 seasons, and how many ever episodes that they're wearing these particular uniforms, anytime you see a variant or an alternate, it just pops right on screen. So that's why I wanted to talk about it, and there's a lot to talk about as well, which
there is,
going through.
I think if you can kind of boil it down to, if you wanted to get to like, I think we could categorize these to some extent. You have one of the things that struck out to me. I'm looking at like a picture right now from Enterprise. I think one thing that they do more often than maybe they're given credit for is like away team, landing party, like specific kind of gear. I think there's a big category that you can lump a lot of uniform variants into that uniform specific or a landing party or away team specific gear. You have like EV suits is a whole nother category that I think you'll find some in this.
Good amount.
Yeah. Yep. There are like one thing that we kind of lumped into this is some like alternate future kinds of visions of uniforms. There are a few of those. And then you have some that are like from past eras that are not seen on screen much. Like in Star Trek Beyond, you have some uniforms that were evidently used previously, but were not ever like the main uniform of the day in any of our shows. So there are these subcategories that I think a lot of these end up fitting into. But I think one of the things that I was surprised by when we were talking about this ahead of time and doing some research and looking at screen grabs is I feel like there's a lot of talk. Like sometimes one of the things Star Trek kind of gets hit on with its budget constraints, and one of the things you kind of have to run with the show, kind of like turn your brain off and just go with it, is that they wear their uniforms everywhere. Like they don't have variants, they don't change into things. There's a lot of away team specific stuff across a lot of the different shows. They don't use them frequently, and a lot of them are more one-off examples, maybe. But there's a ton if you start looking through episode guides and thinking about it and finding these screen grabs, you'll find a ton of them. Looking right now, like Enterprise from Desert Crossing, the hot weather. Enterprise did it a lot.
Yeah, that's the thing though. It's I think you're totally right with the categories though. There's like the dress uniforms, there's the away mission stuff, there's the EV
dress
suits.
Uniforms. Yeah.
So there's a bunch of different types of kind of categories if you wanted to kind of lump together. But I think just in general, each show kind of has its own kind of unique. Some do away mission stuff, some do different variants of the EV suits, some do. So it's I know Star Trek, you're right, Bill, that they do have some budget restraints, but I think there is some difference alternates in each kind of series and show. So
yeah, I think so too. Looking at B'Elanna Torres season 4, like one of the things I've seen discussed on Twitter over the last couple of days, I guess there was I don't know, maybe it's on the Blu-ray coming out this week, season 3 for Discovery. Cindy Martin Green was pretty pregnant at the end of the season, and they had to hide her pregnancy at the end of the season through innovative costume work and some digital stuff, apparently, in the visual effects side of things. B'Elanna Torres had a jacket that covered her pregnancy in season 4, and that's a uniform variant that I think is an interesting one. She's got like tools,
pens and things.
yeah. So there's stuff like that. Dr. Crusher has a big jacket that she wears at the same exact thing. They covered her Gates McFadden's pregnancy in the middle of the show through that. Yeah. So yeah. Do you have a favorite? I know I said we weren't going to ask for that, but is there something that you kind of gravitate to? Is there something that, as you're looking at these screenshots, or
I like anytime we use white, the use of white is kind of a common theme here in a lot of these different episodes, or not episodes, but screen grabs and pictures. So anytime we use white, the Voyager's Drive uniforms are in here somewhere. Picard's dress uniform is in here, where it's kind of all white, which is the gold, kind of not tassels, but accent colors and things. So anytime we get to use white, and then white and then gray, I think are probably my two favorite. A lot of the times, sometimes I didn't get another penal collar one, but anytime we use gray, it can border on the line of not looking good, but there's other times where it just looks really good and really sharp, and so.
Well, I think they're not used very often in the traditional uniforms of the various shows. You don't see white very often in Starfleet uniforms, or gray. I mean, you get the primary, gold, blue, or yellow, gold, and blue and red. Like you get those three kind of primary colors, and there's a lot of blues with like the Discovery uniform, the Enterprise jumpsuits. White and gray are not too often leaned into as like color schemes. So when they are appearing in more specialized gear, like in Drive with the flight suit, or in some of the dress uniforms, you get a little bit more of that. I think it makes them pop and stand out a little bit. I'm looking at Archer's Admiral dress uniform from These Are the Voyages. That white accent in the middle there is really, I think it draws your eye and stands out. I've always really liked that look. In an episode that I'm not overly fond of, but there's some cool costume work in that. I love the jackets that I'm looking at right now from the Xindi, and that's just the screenshots from the Xindi. They wear them pretty often in Enterprise. So cold weather gear are a cool look as well. Yeah,
jackets are maybe another sub kind of category. There's a lot of jackets. Picard has his. We already talked about B'Elanna's, but there's also some interesting ones in the movies. At least on my end, as we're going across, it's gonna probably come up for you. But it was Kirk's jacket. There's some good stuff in Beyond as well with that nice, really blue kind of. It's more blue than anything, and the accent colors are your kind of traditional. Yellow, but jackets are another kind of subcategory as well. You're right.
Yeah, I would agree. I love quite a few of those actually. The Beyond Ian Davies is in the room. How you doing, Ian? Good to see you as always. Cyber Honey as well. We're rattling off some favorite costumes as well. Ian mentions the Kirk jacket from Beyond as a favorite and wanting one. I remember that when the movie came out, that was kind of the thing everybody latched on to. People wanted that jacket. That's one of the things they wanted to cosplay and have, and it just like looks practical too. Like it looks cool and isn't super like science fiction-y. It's got some practicality to it, and I think that's a major hit for the costume lineage of Star Trek in that movie. But I like Kirk's jacket in the Wrath of Khan too. It's little scene. It's only I think really in that movie. I saw you have a screen grab. I don't think I picked it, so I was surprised to see it. It was cool. He's wearing a jacket that's a little different, but a jacket in the Final Frontier. It looks like it's an offshoot of that. So he does wear a jacket a couple of times in the movie series.
He also has a vest. I'm not sure if that was a Starfleet issue.
In Generations, right?
Generations, but he has the badge. Oh, here we go. This on my end, it's the Go Climb a Rock one. That's right.
Yeah.
That jacket is a little bit different as well as the one that Bill picked. That's the closed face one. That's kind of more. I don't know. It's got more to it than the Go Climb a Rock.
Yeah, that strikes me more as like kind of like Enterprise has like really practical cold weather kind of gear that they would really use on away missions. The one he's wearing 5 looks more casual. Maybe not something that he would wear on an away mission.
Do you have a?
What about? Good.
Do you have a favorite EV suit? Maybe we can
translate. I was going to ask you the exact same thing. My favorite EV suit. I don't think it's not in here. Actually, we missed it. But the one that comes to mind right away is the Enterprise one.
Really?
Yeah, I can't believe we didn't do that.
The bronze.
That's probably. Yeah.
The bronze ones. Oh, those. Dang it. But that's the thing. That's the gray area that we kind of brushed on in the beginning, because don't they? They're multiple times in the series, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean. Yeah, I mean, they're very commonly seen in Enterprise, and that's where you can get into this, like, what's an alternate?
Yeah.
The way I kind of ruled it in my head was, like, if it's not what they wear walking around the ship, on duty, at their duty station,
cool.
It's eligible. So, by those rules, it would be. But it is much more frequently seen on screen than a lot of these other choices that we have. That a lot of these are deeper cut, one-off in a movie or in an episode or a couple of episodes maybe. The Enterprise EV suit you see a lot in Enterprise. But maybe that's probably why when I think of it, that is what pops into my mind. I love the First Contact ones that echo into Voyager and Deep Space Nine as well.
Yeah.
In their later seasons, I think of First Contact on the hull of the ship.
Yeah.
And Day of Honor with B'Elanna and Tom and floating in space. They're probably the two that come to mind. I love the retro TOS ones from the Tholian Web too, though. They're silly. They're 1960s, but they're a cool look.
They do feel retro.
They're very retro. But if you're open-minded to such things and you're down with that visual language, they're cool. I mean, I always thought they were cool when I was a kid, and I still do. So, What about you? Do you have a favorite?
I think it would be before you mentioned the Enterprise one. It would probably be First Contact, but I realized that I love the Enterprise ones a lot. I love the bronze. It's it feels very fancy and kind of high techy a little bit.
Yeah.
So I like the bronze with I'm pretty sure the badge is on the. I'll have to go back and look, but yeah, I think those two are probably my favorites. There's also some good stuff in the Kelvin timeline as well, but I think it's a little bit more futuristic, and I like the reason why I like the Kelvin timeline ones, at least in 09, I believe, is because they're different colors. So I like that kind of option as well.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think maybe my favorite thing about the Enterprise ones is that they feel the closest to. I think it achieves what the premise of the show is out to achieve, which is like bringing it closer to our time. Like those EV suits look relatable to something that we could get to. Like that, it feels like an achievable design that would work in like contemporary times. Like it feels accessible and down to earth.
Yeah, it also has like early elements of what we see with the First Contact ones, which I really love as well.
Yeah.
But I also have, I don't know if Bill's seen it, but I have the ones that are in First Flight, the with the yellow and the bubble ones. Those are that's a nice kind of bridge gap to what I would think like what they're using today, like right now, and then also kind of in the futuristic a little bit. So I like those ones as well. Those are kind of a little bit more deep cut than any of these other ones.
I love it's not even just the costume design, but the design work in that episode, First Flight. I think, it's a really good episode that works on a lot of levels. Great guest star with Keith Carradine as Captain Robinson. But, if I'm being honest, the thing that pops into my mind when I think of that episode is the production design of the sets, the costume design with the flight suits, the test bay, 602 Club. Like, there's just a lot of cool stuff in that episode, and the flight suit that's in the screenshot montage that we're showing is right there at the top of that list.
Yeah.
What about dress uniforms? We have quite a few of them kind of going by here.
That's the one. Those are the ones that I was like, are those technically alternates? But now that you've described that, if it's not, as long as it's not what they wear day to day, or like rolling around the ship, the dress uniforms, some of these ones, especially the TNG ones, you see a little bit more often. Kirk's in TOS, I'm not sure how many times you see it, maybe a handful of times, but I think for me, the first one that comes to mind for me is the TNG proper, the longer black ones. It's a little bit more sharper, at least up top. Feels more elegant with the length and the more black, and then the gold accents like on the like the front of it. It's very sharp, and so that's probably my favorite and the one that first comes to mind. But I really love Kirk's in TOS in court martial when he's on trial. I love that gold one with the service medals and stuff on it. But there's a lot of dress uniforms that look really great. But I think those two are probably my two favorites. What about you?
TOS dress uniforms are underrated. I think they really hold up well. I think, like you said, the use of the service medals and the gold lining going down the middle are just really cool. I think it's a good look. I think it's in keeping and similar enough to the duty uniform. Like it's a subtle. It's a big variance. Like it's a very different look. I'm looking at a picture of it right now. But I think it finds that right balance of it's different, but it's in the same universe of it came from the same factory. Like I think it's a really good look. But I also really love, kind of going back to what you were saying at the beginning about white standing out. One of the things I like about the dress uniforms that you see in like Insurrection and then later in Deep Space Nine is the sort of juxtaposition of kind of just going completely opposite of what I was just saying with TOS, that they kind of look similar to the regular uniform and the dress uniform. In that area, you have the black and gray with very subtle division colors in the collar, like the undershirt. Flipping on the other end of the dress uniform, you have the bold white look. I like the difference, the yin yang of those two looks, kind of being in the same usage, period of time. Jimmy77 says his favorite dress uniforms are the white ones. So I might go with the white ones because I think they're the most visually jarringly different. And, the white, I think you're right on, because white is so kind of uncommonly used in Starfleet stuff when it is in there, and it's done well. It really does hit you as well. This is different, cool.
Yeah, there's something about white that just it's elegant, but it also just really pops, and it's really I guess maybe I just associate it with just more like white. I think is more common in formal stuff, and that's generally used in I guess you would wear a dress uniform to a more formal event than your like day-to-day jumpsuit or whatever you're wearing. So
it's a tough thing to pull off though too, like, because when I think of I think sometimes if people like, if it's not, I'm not somebody that gravitates to like a white tuxedo. Like, I think that can kind of look silly, you know? Like it's like you said, you can white can definitely be associated with like elegance and formality and stuff like that. But if there is visual stuff in our own contemporary
that can go over
language that can go over the top a little bit. Yeah, exactly, and be seen as like, oh, it's bold and drawing attention and silly. But I guess that maybe that's the beauty of the dress uniforms and Insurrection and beyond. That I think it never goes into that territory. What else do we have? How about we have some future, or maybe we talk about the motion picture. I'm looking at a picture of the motion picture, and there's so much happening in that movie. That's kind of one of those anomalies that we were talking about. It's a single movie that gives us that visual language with the costume design and the production design. It's specific and independent to that movie, but it's almost impossible to pin down like what is the standard duty uniform.
They've got all the budgets because they there's a picture in here that'll probably go by, but it's 4 different characters with 4 different types of uniform variants, and so that's just, and even Kirk, it doesn't even wear the same as they do, like the crewmen do. It's a different uniform, so it's a little bit harder to pin down the styling, but it's a little bit like shades of white and very subtle kind of colors variants. I think it stands out for a lot of people because it's a complete departure from TOS, who was just generally just overboard with color, just exploding off the screen. This is more kind of subtle. Everyone kind of blends in.
Monochrome, top.
It feels more uniform, like not the stuff that they wear, but everything kind of feels the same. And I think it's an interesting take. It's not my favorite, but I think it's an interesting kind of idea about uniforms.
Yeah, it's an interesting case study. Like you could I think we could spend an hour just talking about the design work of the motion picture and look at the sets and the costumes and the props, because it's so, I mean, obviously a huge budget. It was bringing Star Trek into the big screen. They were trying to up the ante and bring it into a whole new era. And so there's a lot of newly introduced stuff, and there's a lot of money on screen with that, the products of that. So the sheer variety of what you see in the uniforms in the motion picture is what stands out to me. Like I said, I when I visualize it, I think of the different, like the screenshot that's in here of, I think it's like Chekhov, Sulu, Uhura, and a background guy all wearing completely different. Like some have more crew necks, some have V-necks that come all the way down. You have short sleeves, you have long sleeves, you have different cuts. There's like the gray kind of one suit, onesie, TNG season 1 kind of look, and then there's
different necklines.
Two-piece.
It's just all over the place.
Yeah, the division colors are different. Jimmy 77 mentions the medical ones that Chapel and Dr. McCoy wear are kind of independent in their own thing. It's true. They really do. It's weird to rationalize all the changes from the motion picture to the Wrath of Khan. Yeah, such a radical departure in visual tone and the style of Starfleet between those two movies. So yeah, the motion picture is a huge anomaly and full of Starfleet variants that, if you have a favorite from that, I'd love to hear it. If kind of like Jimmy 77 pointed to the medical uniforms, the one that comes to mind for me is Kirk's Admiral uniform that he's wearing at the beginning of the movie with the white, again, the white V and the gray. Yeah. Yep. When he gets off the little shuttle at the beginning, and he's touring the Enterprise in it, in the shuttle pod. I think that's the visual costume design thing that's like ingrained in my head when I think of in the motion picture. Kirk in that costume comes to mind pretty quickly. So what about you? If you think of the motion picture, do you have a favorite thing in that movie with all the stuff?
I would probably have to say Kirk's, this is a cop-out answer, but Kirk's Admiral uniform. Again, I think it's a great use of white with the formal. It's not kind of over the top. I think it's perfect, and it's got gray, which I like gray.
I agree.
But yeah, those Admiral uniforms are pretty sharp looking as well.
Yeah, and Admiral uniforms are another kind of subcategory that we could spend time on as well.
True.
The Admiral uniforms are constantly changing throughout Star Trek, especially in the Next Generation. I think you could do a whole show on that. And yeah, there's a whole bunch that you could grab. Going from like season 1 to season 7, I think you probably see 7 different iterations of the Admiral uniform. Yeah, they change pretty radically over the time, and continue to sort of change even through Deep Space Nine. I think when they find, I think my favorite of the Admiral uniforms is probably the Admiral Ross, which you're kind of getting into now with season 6 of Deep Space Nine. It's the most kind of, I think, credible, like down to earth. Not too fancy, not taking it too far, but cool. Like I think it just works as a some of the Admiral uniforms in TNG I think get to be a little too much and a little silly at times, but that one is what comes to mind when I think Admiral uniforms.
It feels
they do with one other exception.
It feels administrative kind of, and I think that's they dabble with that style in Enterprise, but I think Admiral Ross is probably the one that I prefer.
Admiral Forrest in Enterprise, though, is right up there, too. The tie. The more suit-like formal wear. Again, I think trying to harken back to contemporary things that are going to probably be in our own real-life visual, costume, formal wear kinds of things we're going to see in day-to-day life echoing into Star Trek, which was certainly a priority for Enterprise early on to incorporate some of those things. To make it more relatable to us and closer to us than to Captain Picard. And I think that is one of the more successful pieces of Enterprise achieving that goal is the Admiral wear in Enterprise. Because like we were talking about last night, and you were just saying with Admiral Ross, it looks administrative. It looks like somebody that'd be working behind a desk and doing administrative work. They're not out in space, flying a ship and going to planets and being on duty all the time. They're sitting behind a desk and doing higher level administrative work, and
Yeah.
I think that costume is very credible
Mm-hmm.
in those kinds of duties.
And going into some color theory here, anytime, because his blue is a little bit darker and deeper, and anytime you mirror that with more a lighter color, like white, it just really pops. And so that's what I think of when I see that Admiral Forrest. Is he has this really deep blue with some really cool pinstriping, but also I think just because of that dark blue, the white and the tie just always pop, and I really do like that. You're right. His uniform's pretty cool, and yeah, it does feel very. It's nice to see. I'm not sure if he has zippers on his, but that's something we could talk about. But yeah, Admiral Ross. It's very fitting for the type of administrative, very decisions he has to make, and it's just really good. I like it.
Agreed. What about, I'm looking at Cadet Nog's uniform. How about like Starfleet Academy kind of wear?
I like it because it's a little bit more simple. Like even there's some Kelvin Timeline stuff in here as well with the, but it's more simple and it's really straightforward, and that to me just screams easy to just keep clean and maintain just this. This great body of like a bunch of different students just wearing the same thing. It just feels like something that they would have at like a university or something like that. So it's it feels very simple and straightforward and essential, and I think that's kind of what a cadet should be kind of wearing and learn from. So yeah, I do the cadets. There's a lot of variants, not a lot, but there's some variants in there with Wesley, but also Nog. Nog's got the gray type. Wesley does have the black style, but again, it feels just more simple and straightforward. Same with Kirk in the Kelvin Timeline. It's one color, or not one color. It's different shades of one color, and well, in some cadet dress uniforms are. Because when he's doing the Kobayashi Maru, he's in that gray kind of jumpsuit. But when
it's almost like a flight suit for the cadets, like a.
But there's also like just the solid color cadet uniforms, the red in the bar, and then when Pike dresses them down, they're all in the red.
Yeah. 09 does a lot of work with different variants of the Starfleet Academy kind of era. Like if you're in the academy, what are you going to be wearing? There's a few different things that you see.
Yeah.
I think of the Wesley one from like the first duty because I think that probably, if I had to guess, that probably directly inspired like the
everything.
Because that's season 5 of TNG, and the next year they had Voyager. I mean, they had Deep Space Nine introduced, and that's where they introduced the more black with the red, blue or gold top, shoulders. You have to think that design choice came from what they did with the Starfleet Academy stuff and the first duty.
Yeah,
because it's basically that. Like they incorporated the turtleneck, the Wesley Starfleet Academy uniform is basically like a TNG uniform, just with the colors flipped.
Yeah,
and the stuff that you see in Voyager and early Deep Space Nine is more of a departure than that, with the purple turtleneck and all. But that color choice to flip the black and the division color, feels like it was spawned from that that costume. So I give it credit for sparking somebody's imagination and giving us, I think, a really successful Starfleet uniform that is pretty ingrained in people's minds because it's there for so long over multiple shows. Star Trek Beyond, there's a lot of screenshots as well of different. Like I like Pike's Yorktown uniform that he wears at the beginning and at the end of the movie, sort of bookending when they get to Yorktown, and at the end when he's talking to the Admiral again. That gray being a different with the yellow accents and the zipper, I think is a really cool look.
Yeah.
beyond the Kelvin timeline in general. I like a lot of the stuff. I love the gray Starfleet headquarters.
Oh yeah.
2-piece with the hat that you see.
Is that their dress uniform though?
I don't know. That's the thing. I guess sort of. I don't know. I guess. Either. I mean, they're going to see the Admiral.
Yeah.
Going to see Pike. So maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else kind of standing out to you? Like we're kind of hitting a lot of stuff.
Yeah. No, I like the. I mentioned it earlier. There's zippers in the future still. I think it's a cool progression from Enterprise. There's stuff in the Kelvin timeline with the zippers in that one. I think there's some Discovery Black Away mission that's got the utility kind of. It's got some zippers as well. So I love that progression that we get to see. Even with Edison's crew, or there's a screen grab in here of Edison, they've got zippers as well, and that's technically Enterprise era or beyond. But I like the zippers too, with Enterprise's uniforms, and then the progression that we get to see, even in like beyond. That's pretty cool. So
yeah, there's zippers are cool, pockets are cool whenever you see them, because I think for so long over the early part of Star Trek, up until Enterprise, pockets were just never a thing on these Starfleet uniforms. And Enterprise went the other way. I think there were enough pockets on Enterprise's uniforms to make up for any losses across all the rest of it. And you see them a little bit more often in some of the more modern stuff as well, with the Kelvin timeline. So zippers and pockets are an interesting thing to think about and look at across all these different uniforms. Mirror universe stuff is another kind of does it count? We didn't include it. Can you make a case that they're Starfleet variants? Kind of. They're spins on Starfleet uniforms. We chose not to go down that rabbit hole. If we were, a lot of that stuff is cool. I like the mirror TOS variants. There's some cool stuff in that, and I like the Discovery, the cutoffs, the weird cutoffs, and the more sharp angles to those cuts. Uniforms definitely look a little meaner. And I think in Mirror Darkly and Discovery do some good work with Mirror Universe alternates to our uniforms. More combat ready, more protective, defensive. Kinds of uniforms. Cyber Honey mentioned a bunch of costume design. I wouldn't necessarily categorize them as Starfleet variants, but they're all really good choices. Mentioning Seven's Voyager outfits, which we talked about kind of last night as like, what exactly are they? are they Starfleet issue? No, I don't think so. But
Relativity, she's wearing a uniform.
Kind of. Yeah. She is wearing a uniform in Relativity. Yeah. Memorably. Willie Hawkins stuff in Far Beyond the Stars, which you just watched, is some cool costume cues. Judge robes, really good stuff. Shinzon's outfit in Nemesis, and Ambassador Kalar's outfit in The Emissary. Really good Star Trek costume work. But I think they're probably more in keeping with what we did a couple weeks ago with more one-off costumes. But great stuff. I especially like Q's Judge robes. I don't think we mentioned that when we did that episode, and I feel like we missed the boat on a big one. So thank you for sharing, Cyber Honey. I think that'll about do it. This is one of those topics we could go on all day. You can almost go like episode by episode and look at what possibilities you find kind of across the continuity, and find a ton of stuff that we didn't even mention today. I think just in our conversation we stumbled into some stuff that we forgot about. Somehow we missed the Enterprise EV suits for the screen grabs. I know. I'm sure there was one or two other things that I'm already forgetting that came up that we missed. But it's one of those endless topics that is unexpectedly endless. Like I said, it struck me last night when we were talking about it ahead of time and prepping a little bit. I sat down to start that conversation, kind of wondering, is there that much? And the answer is yes, there is that much, and more.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys know the drill. The discussion doesn't have to stop here. The Discord server and Twitter, probably the best ways to kind of keep the discussion alive, be a part of the discussion. Thank everybody who came, joined us live, and really helped us drive the discussion, put in their picks, put in their kind of thoughts on all these alternatives, alternate uniforms and kind of costumes that we talked about today. The Discord server has been really fun. I think maybe my favorite part is, at least right now, is seeing what everybody's watching. There's a watch log channel where you can post what you're watching. Always talk about just the episodes, things in it. It's always a good time, so definitely check that out.
Yeah, and I guess we should plug, next weekend we're doing our Trek After Dark event, which is sort of exclusive to the Discord server. It's a casual hangout where we watch episodes, talk about whatever's going on in our lives. We play trivia sometimes. It's really just a casual hangout. Imagine yourself at a convention, sitting at a restaurant or sitting at a bar with a bunch of fans and just kind of yucking it up. And that's what we do. We try to do it a few times a year, ideally quarterly. Sometimes time gets away from us and might not achieve quite that frequency, but that's always the goal, to have a handful a year. And we're doing one next Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're interested in connecting with Star Trek fans on a more personal level and being a part of that more intimate community, you can send me a DM on Twitter at TrekFan4387, and I can give you the lowdown on how Discord works if you've never used it before, and get you invited to our server where you can access events like that, as well as just interact. Like Dan was saying, we have a watch log where people can share what they're watching or rewatching. We have a channel for the new stuff, which should be more active when there is new stuff airing. Place to share your thoughts on new episodes as they come out. Literature channel, if you're reading a book, a Star Trek book, and you want to share your thoughts on that, there's a pretty decent population of people in there who are big fans of the literary universe, and you have access to somebody that might have read the same book you're reading, or you want to bounce ideas off of. So a lot of good stuff happening in there. DM me on Twitter if you're interested in joining. TrekFan4387. Be happy to get you hooked up.
We will be back next week for another episode of Trek Live. But this is also a friendly reminder that we're also just under a month away from New Trek, so we'll be bringing back some coverage on that as well. So really excited about that. But that's been episode 177. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.